I caught my husband inside our study with my son's fiancée. The door was half open, the air too still, and the sound of his voice crawled across the hallway, low, careful, the kind of tone he only used when he was hiding something. The safe behind the painting was open, papers scattered, and a small velvet pouch sat on the desk. I stepped forward, ready to demand an explanation, but then I saw her, my son's bride-to-be, standing across from him, calm, composed, and holding her phone like a lifeline. She didn't even flinch when I spoke his name. She just looked up, straight into my eyes, and laid her phone face down, the faint red light on the corner blinking. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I thought I was watching my marriage collapse, but I was wrong. It was something far worse. Behind me, I heard slow footsteps. My son, Leo, stood in the doorway, his face pale and unreadable. He reached for my arm, whispering through clenched teeth, "Mom, please, don't shout. It's not what you think." My heart pounded so hard I could hear it echo in my ears. "She's wearing a wire," he said. Those 3 words twisted the entire moment inside out. I looked back at the blinking light, the open safe, the fear flickering in my husband's eyes, and realized I had stepped into something I didn't yet understand, a truth so sharp it would cut through every illusion I'd ever built. In that single breath, the roles in my family flipped. My son was calm, the fiancé was fearless, and my husband, the man I had trusted for 25 years, was the one trembling. My voice cracked when I spoke, but the words came out steady. "What's going on here?" He opened his mouth to answer, but the sound of a soft digital beep interrupted him. The red light blinked twice, recording. And that's when I understood. This wasn't a betrayal of love, it was a betrayal of law. My husband wasn't cheating. He was being investigated. Human value. Sometimes the moment that shatters your world doesn't destroy you. It exposes the truth you needed to see. 2 weeks earlier, our lives still looked like a photograph that hadn't yet cracked. I was fussing over lanterns on the patio, arranging flowers so everything looked effortless. Victor, my husband of 25 years, was laughing with the caterer, his charm filling every corner of the house the way sunlight fills glass. Our son, Leo, was finishing a playlist for the engagement dinner. His fiancée, Ava, stood by the window, quiet but observant, the kind of girl who notices the clock ticking in a silent room. It was supposed to be a celebration of everything we'd built together, our family, our future, our peace. But even then, beneath the music and laughter, something small and wrong was humming. It began with missing afternoons. A lunch Victor swore was a meeting. A donation receipt from a foundation I didn't recognize. A banker's box in the study marked, "Do not touch." Every time I asked about it, he smiled and changed the subject. I wanted to believe it was harmless. You don't throw suspicion at a man who's shared your pillow for half your life. So I ignored the ache in my stomach, convinced myself that unease was simply middle age, not warning. Ava, though, she saw it. She would ask gentle questions about the charity work, about Victor's projects, about numbers that didn't quite add up. She wasn't prying. She was mapping a pattern I refused to see. The night before the engagement dinner, I caught Victor standing on the porch, whispering into his phone. When he saw me, he smiled that practiced smile and said, "Just confirming the photographer." But his tone was wrong. Too careful, too flat. I remember thinking how strange it is that lies can sound polite. I kissed him goodnight and told myself it was nothing. But I lay awake listening to the house breathe, realizing that peace can sound an awful lot like denial. Human value. Sometimes the danger isn't chaos, it's comfort. The moment you stop questioning what feels almost fine, the cracks begin to spread beneath your own feet. It started as a whisper in the corners of my mind that refused to quiet down. 3 nights before the engagement dinner, I woke up to the faint glow of my home office light. Leo was sitting at my desk, my laptop open, his face pale beneath the screen's reflection. "Mom," he said quietly, "I need you to see something." I walked closer and saw a folder of documents, spreadsheets, donation records, and bank transfers. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then my heart began to sink. Each line showed money flowing out of the family foundation, but not to schools or charities. The transfers led to accounts I didn't recognize. Every date matched one of Victor's business trips. Leo rubbed his forehead. I wanted to tell you sooner, but I wasn't sure. Ava found it. His voice cracked a little when he said her name. She used to handle compliance at her firm. She said this pattern looks like laundering, small enough to hide, steady enough to matter. He looked up at me, eyes wet and furious. Mom, Dad's stealing from his own foundation. My body went cold. No, I whispered, almost pleading with the air. He's careless sometimes, but not dishonest. Leo's jaw tightened. You've been defending him my whole life. You think I don't remember? His voice softened, but the pain in it was sharp. I was 10 when I heard you crying in the laundry room because he lost a deal. You said grown-ups make mistakes, but some mistakes last decades. I sat down slowly, every word weighing heavier than the last. You confronted him? I asked. Yes, Leo said. He told me I was naive, that I don't understand how donations work. He hesitated. So I went to Ava. She told me to stop guessing and start proving. Mom, she's helping me, carefully. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. She's working with people from her firm who still have ties to investigators. They need one confirmation, an audio file of him admitting the transfers. I stared at my son, the boy I'd protected from scraped knees and bad grades, now speaking with the clarity of a man who'd stopped believing in safety. You shouldn't be part of this, I said. It's not your job to fix your father's sins. But Leo only shook his head. It's our job to protect you, Mom. He'll bury the truth if we don't stop him. Ava's taking a risk. She's the only one he trusts enough to talk freely around. That night, I couldn't sleep. The walls of the house felt smaller. Every photo on the wall, our vacations, anniversaries, birthdays, looked staged, like props in someone else's story. The next morning, I watched Victor kiss my cheek before work, the same way he always did. But this time, I saw it differently. The warmth was practiced, the eyes distracted. My marriage had become an alibi. Human value. Sometimes love blinds us so completely that truth has to arrive through someone else's courage. And when it does, you face a choice: stay silent for peace or speak for justice. The morning after Leo's confession, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I spilled coffee twice before giving up. The kitchen, once my refuge, now felt like a crime scene I hadn't yet understood. Everything around me looked ordinary, the smell of toast, the sunlight on the marble counter, but inside, my chest felt hollow. Victor had already left for a breakfast meeting. I sat in silence, wondering how many of those meetings were real. When the clock struck 9, my phone buzzed. The message was short. It's Ava. We need to talk. Alone. We met at a quiet cafe near the courthouse, a place filled with soft music and the smell of old wood and espresso. Ava walked in, not as my son's fiancée, but as someone on a mission. She wasn't wearing her ring. Her hair was tied back, her eyes focused, sharp, tired, but steady. She didn't waste time with small talk. Ma'am, she said, her voice calm and deliberate, I need to tell you something before you hear it from anyone else. When she said she was cooperating with investigators, my stomach dropped. Investigators. I repeated, my voice trembling. For what? She opened a folder and slid it toward me. Inside were copies of the same bank records Leo had shown me, but annotated, cross-referenced, and stamped. Your husband's charity is under quiet review for misallocation of funds. They've been watching transfers that lead to shell companies. They needed someone close to confirm the voice on those authorizations. I could barely breathe. So you're wearing a wire? I asked, my voice small. Ava nodded. Yes. And before you think I'm betraying your family, please understand something. I didn't start this. I stumbled into it. When Leo proposed, I did my due diligence before joining the foundation board. That's how I found the irregularities. I reported them confidentially. I didn't know your husband was the one at the center of it, until now. Her words felt like stones in my throat. Why didn't you come to me first? I asked, almost pleading. Ava's face softened. Because you love him, and love can be the hardest place for truth to live. She took a deep breath. The investigators need an audio confirmation, a clear admission of intent. The safest way to get that is inside your study, the only room without a noise filter on the cameras. Tomorrow, I'll visit Victor under the pretense of reviewing last-minute foundation files. He trusts me. He'll talk freely. But, she hesitated, glancing down. If something goes wrong, he'll know I set him up. I could lose my career. Maybe worse. I stared at her, this young woman who had every reason to walk away, yet chose to stay because it was right. My heart clenched with an emotion I didn't expect, pride mixed with fear. Why are you risking this? I asked quietly. Ava's eyes glistened. Because Leo deserves the truth. And so do you. We sat in silence for a long time. Outside, life carried on. People laughed, traffic hummed, sunlight flickered across the table. But for me, time had stopped. The girl I once saw as just my son's fiancée had become the only person brave enough to fight for our family's honesty. When she left, she touched my hand gently and said, "Tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. Stay ready." That night, I sat awake beside Victor, listening to his slow, steady breathing. The sound used to comfort me. Now it felt like a stranger's rhythm. I wanted to shake him awake, to demand answers, but something inside me whispered to wait. The truth was coming, not through confrontation, but through evidence. And evidence doesn't lie. Human value. Sometimes strength isn't in fighting loud battles, it's in choosing silence until truth can speak for itself. Real courage isn't born from rage, it's born from restraint. Exactly 10 o'clock the next morning, Ava's white sedan pulled quietly into our driveway. I was already awake, dressed, pretending to work at the kitchen counter but unable to focus on a single line of text. Leo was upstairs, pacing. The air inside the house felt thick, like the calm before a thunderstorm that knows exactly where it plans to strike. I heard Victor's voice first, smooth, familiar, and too confident. "Ava, come in. Always a pleasure to see my favorite future daughter-in-law." I forced myself to stay seated, even as my pulse raced. The sound of their footsteps moved toward the study. A door clicked shut. Silence, except for faint murmurs through the wall. My heart pounded so loud it drowned everything else out, but I forced myself to breathe slowly and listen. Ava's tone was polite, careful. "Mr. Hanley, before we finalize the donation report, I need to confirm some records for the audit team." "The audit team?" Victor laughed softly. "They wouldn't understand half the transfers if they tried. Don't worry about those, Ava. I've already handled it." "Handled it how?" she asked, steady but almost casual. "The same way I handle everything," he replied, the words slick as oil. "Quietly. You delete the duplicate exports. We'll say the system glitched." Then came the sound I'll never forget, the tiny mechanical click of the safe door opening. "Those scholarship accounts," Ava continued, "the ones under Silver Harrow LLC, do you want me to merge them before the external review?" "Yes," Victor said firmly. "All of them. Rename the line items and clear the transaction trail. The donor families trust me. They won't check. They never do." There it was, his voice calm and certain, confessing without hesitation. Ava didn't say a word. She didn't have to. The wire was already blinking, each flash capturing another second of proof. I felt something inside me unravel, a lifetime of devotion, loyalty, and blind faith collapsing under the weight of his own words. My hands trembled so violently that I had to grip the counter. This wasn't the man I had loved. This was a stranger with my husband's face. I stood up, moving toward the study before I could stop myself. Leo met me halfway down the hall, eyes wide. "Mom," he whispered. "Please, not yet." His voice cracked. The transmission's still live. But it was too late. I pushed the door open, and both of them turned. Victor froze mid-sentence, one hand still hovering over the safe, the other clutching a folder of papers. Ava straightened slowly, calm as glass. The red light on her collar blinked once, bright and undeniable. "What's going on?" My voice came out steady, but my hands were shaking. Victor's mask snapped on instantly. "Sweetheart, we're just cleaning up for the auditors." "Then why," I said quietly, "is the folder on your desk labeled delete first?" Ava didn't move. She looked straight at him. "Sir, can you confirm you authorized those transfers personally?" His eyes flicked to her blouse, to the blinking light. "Turn that off," he said, his voice suddenly low and dangerous. "Now." He stepped toward her. Leo's footsteps thundered down the stairs. I moved before Victor could take another step, placing myself between them. "You're not taking anything from her," I said. "Not this time." For the first time in our marriage, Victor looked genuinely afraid, not of exposure, but of recognition. He realized, in that breath, that the woman standing before him wasn't his shield anymore. And then, faintly, from Ava's pocket, came the soft buzz of her phone syncing the live recording to an encrypted server. A digital chirp that meant there was no going back. Victor's face changed. Shock, fury, disbelief, all folding into something small and desperate. "You have no idea what you've done," he hissed. "Oh, I do," I said quietly. I stopped pretending. The house felt smaller suddenly, like its walls were listening too. Leo stood behind me, jaw clenched, his voice steady as stone. "Backup's on the way," he said. "It's over, Dad." And for the first time in 25 years, I saw my husband's smile disappear completely. Human value. There's a moment when truth stops being a secret and starts becoming freedom. Standing your ground doesn't destroy your family. It saves what's still worth saving. By evening, our house had been transformed into a stage. Tables glowing under string lights, the smell of roses and champagne drifting through the air, guests arriving in polished shoes and practiced smiles. The laughter sounded real, but all I could hear was the echo of Victor's voice from that morning. "Delete everything." I had replayed those words so many times that they had burned into the walls of my mind. Ava had left the house quietly after the confrontation, her composure unbroken. She'd said one sentence that still lingered in my chest. "Don't expose him yet, ma'am. Let the truth do it for you." It was the calm of someone who had seen more corruption than comfort. She had already forwarded the full audio to investigators. All we had to do now was wait. But waiting meant surviving an engagement party where every handshake, every toast, every smile was another act in a performance that had already collapsed behind the curtains. Victor was flawless, of course, greeting guests, shaking hands, telling stories about his honored work at the foundation. Every lie rolled off his tongue like silk. I watched him from across the garden, standing beneath the lanterns, the same man who used to bring me coffee in bed and hum old songs under his breath. I wondered how many mornings he had already been lying to me then, too. When the speeches began, Leo stood beside Ava, both of them poised, calm, and heartbreakingly mature. I saw the tension in his hands, the same restlessness that had kept me awake at his age when life felt too big to contain. He cleared his throat, smiled at the crowd, and began, "Before we celebrate, my fiancé and I have something to share." The murmurs quieted. The projector screen flickered to life, the same one I had prepared for the slideshow of baby photos and vacations. But instead of our family memories, a spreadsheet filled the screen. Neat rows, columns, transaction codes, each one marked with the date, the amount, and the name of the shell company. The crowd whispered. Someone laughed awkwardly, thinking it was a mistake. Victor froze, the glass in his hand trembling. Leo continued, his voice clear and unwavering. These are the accounts linked to the Hanley Foundation Scholarship Fund. 6 programs, 0 active students. Every withdrawal was signed by my father. The silence that followed was deafening. I felt time slow down, the kind of silence that weighs heavier than any scream. Guests exchanged looks, the donors among them paling as they recognized their own contribution numbers on the screen. Victor stepped forward, his voice dripping with charm and authority. This is ridiculous. Some kind of misunderstanding. These are internal transfers, part of routine. Ava cut in softly, her tone like a blade hidden in silk. We have the full audit trail and recorded confirmation, Mr. Hanley. It's already been submitted. The room rippled with gasps. Victor's face turned crimson. You were recording me? He shouted, pointing at her, then at Leo. You set me up. No, Leo said, his jaw tight. You set yourself up when you started lying to everyone who trusted you. The board chair of the foundation, an older woman with steady eyes, stepped forward from the front row. Mr. Hanley, we've received the same report from investigators this afternoon, she said evenly. Your access cards and financial authorizations have been suspended pending review. Victor's mask shattered. You can't do this to me, he hissed, but no one answered. The murmurs grew louder. I stood there, silent, holding the envelope I had prepared, divorce papers and an itemized breakdown of every fraudulent transaction, notarized and sealed. I didn't wave it like a weapon. I didn't need to. My silence spoke louder than his panic ever could. The lights flickered once. The party was over. Guests were already moving toward the exits, whispering into phones, avoiding his eyes. Victor stood alone under the lanterns, shoulders sagging, looking like a man who had finally realized there was nowhere left to hide. I walked past him without a word, my heels crunching softly on the gravel. For a moment, I thought he might reach for me, try to explain, try to salvage something, but he didn't. He just stood there, watching the only world he had ever built crumble in front of everyone who once admired him. Ava and Leo stood together at the edge of the garden. She looked shaken but resolute, her hand finding his. It's done, she whispered. No one can hide the truth anymore. I nodded, my throat tight. No one ever could. It was just waiting to be seen. The investigators arrived quietly, no sirens, no spectacle, just the calm efficiency of people who deal with lies for a living. They took statements, collected documents, and walked Victor to his car without handcuffs, because his real punishment wasn't arrest, it was exposure. When the last guest had gone and the lights dimmed, I stood in the middle of the empty garden, surrounded by flowers that no longer smelled sweet. It wasn't victory I felt. It was relief. Human value. Truth doesn't need revenge, it needs light. When you bring deceit into the open, you don't just end a lie, you create the space for something honest to begin. The days that followed felt like walking through the ruins of a home I once built with my own hands. Reporters camped outside, the phone rang endlessly, and the foundation froze every account linked to Victor's name. He tried calling me once, just once, a number I didn't recognize until I heard his voice on voicemail. Simone, he said, I made mistakes, but I can fix this. Please don't destroy me. But the truth is, he'd already destroyed himself. There was nothing left for me to ruin. A month later, the divorce was finalized. I kept the house, not as a trophy, but as a reminder of what honesty costs, and what peace feels like when you finally buy it back. The investigators confirmed what Ava and Leo had uncovered. 3 years of quiet theft disguised as generosity. The stolen money was recovered. The foundation was rebuilt under new management. And for the first time in decades, donations actually reached the students they were meant for. Leo and Ava took time apart after the storm, giving themselves space to heal. They didn't rush to replan the wedding, they just learned how to be two people rebuilding trust, step by step. They went to counseling, not because they were broken, but because they refused to carry the silence that had poisoned our family. Watching them was like watching spring after a long, cruel winter, soft, slow, honest. As for me, I started over. I reopened my small accounting practice and began volunteering with charities to help them create transparent systems, so no one else could lose years of faith to one person's greed. It felt like giving back pieces of myself that I didn't even know were missing. I wasn't the same woman who once hid behind her husband's reputation. I was someone quieter, stronger, and real. One evening, months later, I sat on the patio under those same string lights that had once witnessed our family's collapse. The air was still, warm, forgiving. Leo came outside, holding a letter. It was from a student who'd received one of the recovered scholarships, a girl who wrote, "Thank you for not giving up on doing the right thing. Because of you, I'm in college today." I looked at Leo, tears in my eyes, and said softly, "That's what truth does. It doesn't destroy. It rebuilds." He smiled and took my hand. "You did that, Mom. You didn't just expose him. You freed us." I looked up at the lights, glowing against the dark sky, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel broken. I felt alive. Sometimes the most powerful act of love isn't forgiveness, it's the courage to stop protecting what's false and start protecting what's right. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to breathe, to reflect, and to remember, honesty heals deeper than silence ever can. Broken heart sparkles. Comment, "I choose truth," below if you believe that even in pain, doing what's right is the beginning of peace. And if you'd like to hear more real, powerful stories like this, make sure to subscribe, because the next story might be the one that reminds you that healing is possible. Red Heart.